What is up, you guys? Diggerdan here, coming at you with another video. This time, I am picking up and digging into the inheritance games. So, without further ado, let's dig into it. Now, the premise for the inheritance games is that one girl named Avery gets mysterious message that she has inherited something from Tobias Hawthorne, who is like the richest man in the country, basically, or the richest man in Texas specifically. But he's very, very rich. He's got uber billions of dollars with a B. And when Avery gets to this will reading, turns out that she basically inherited 99% of his estate, all of his money, all of his land holdings, just pretty much everything. And she's just some schmuck. She lives in her car when she isn't living with her sister in her apartment. She's a junior in high school, so it's very young. I think she's 17 in the book. Inherits a crazy amount of money, and of course Tobias Hawthorne's family is livid, and they have no idea who she is. They think, what did you do to our dementia-ridden grandfather, even though there's no sign that he had dementia. Seems like he's a very smart guy. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of the premise of the book. I didn't really spoil anything because that's pretty much on the back of the book, or in the first couple chapters. Yeah, so very cool premise. And that's why I wanted to read it, but I didn't really like the book overall. I kind of got hooked in the beginning. It didn't trap me, but it snatched me pretty good. The hook got me. But then I was 100 pages in. I'm like, hopefully this gets better. Because overall, I rated the book out of 10 a 5.4, which is not really that great. It is above a 5. 5 is like dead even, dead average. That's like saying it's a book, I read it, I have no emotions, right? So anything over a 5, I did technically enjoy or like. So this one falls under that since it is a 5.4. But it's a tentative recommend. And I'll get into that when I get into spoilers. But yeah, so if that didn't ruin it for you, and you don't want to do spoilers, and you still want to go read this book, go do that, and then please come back and hear my thoughts after you read it. See if you agree with me, see if you disagree with me. Yell at me in the comments whether I'm right or wrong. But yeah, without further ado, let's dig into the comments. Or excuse me, dig into the spoilers. Okay, so the first category that I rate is emotional impact. And I rated emotional impact for this book at a 5.75, which isn't great, but they're all kind of be around there for most of these, just to be warned. And the reason is because, like I said, the hook got me. It was pretty interesting. Like Avery living in her car, very smart, she seems. When she actually has the time, she puts into it. Like at the beginning of the book, she took this test, I think it was physics. She got 100% on it, because she's like, oh yeah, I actually had time to study on that one. So, cool, I got 100%. But she got sent to the principal's office, and the principal's asking her, like, how'd you get 100%? Like, no one gets 100% in his class or on this test. And then she's like, I studied. What do you mean? He's like, nobody. And then she's throwing it back in his face. Well, it's his fault for being a bad teacher, he's forcing us to fail by writing a very hard thing, intending us to lose points, things like that. So, and then she's like, I'll take the test right now. Do it. So she ended up taking the test. It's never actually revealed what she did end up getting on it, but it's kind of inferred that she did get 100%. So that was interesting. But then a little later, when she gets introduced to the Hawthorne family, they're just kind of weird. Like the first one that she meets, I already forget his name, Grayson, in a suit. Again, this is from the eyes of a 17-year-old girl, and this is written by a female author, written for young adults. So I'm not necessarily the target audience, which is fair. But she's basically giving him like goo eyes, but trying not to. Seems attracted to him, things like that. That kind of took me out of it a little bit. Things like that. I think when she met Jameson Hawthorne, he's drunk and he's stumbling, but they're like the same age, or he's 18. It's like, I understand they're very rich and kind of a dysfunctional family, but still, that's kind of sort of promote underage drinking that didn't sit well with me. That's kind of not cool. But they're rich, so they don't follow the same rules. But I don't care. That's stupid in my opinion. I don't like TV shows that portray that for the same reason. Um, but introducing the characters was good. The way it was done, it kind of portrays each character's like personality a little bit in its snapshot. Um, but the characters themselves I didn't care for. So again, the hook got me, but by the end, following these couple different romances, being trapped with this weird family that's very dysfunctional and kind of at each other's throats, kind of lost me throughout. And at the end of the book, when it's revealed that she was just a puzzle piece basically for Tobias Hawthorne's final riddle, kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. It kind of makes sense in the way it's explained later, but we don't see very much of that in the build-up at all. So, but again, it's through the eyes of Avery for most of this, which is kind of also the eyes of the reader. So that kind of makes sense because she doesn't really know what's going on, so she's kind of exploring this weird new house, weird new family, weird new world. So that kind of makes sense, but still, didn't really sit all that well with me. Next category I rate is characters. This is the lowest thing I rated. I rated this as a 4.75. Overall, I didn't really care for the characters. Avery's sister, I forget her name, she seems like a very genuinely nice person. And I don't want to just say that she's a bad character because she's kind of out there and weird because blue hair, gothic, whatever. I had friends in high school that were like that, so I can't really, that's not why. But her weird attraction or affection for her ex-boyfriend that beat her or hit her, but she can't let go of that because she has like commitment or attachment issues, whatever. That was actually good. That felt like real human emotion. But then logically her running off and like telling him, oh, Avery got this big new inheritance. We're rich. Why would you go and tell him that? Like like that wasn't great. Again, for plot reasons, it had to happen, whatever. But that's not cool. It kind of made me not like her sister quite a bit. And then even after the fact, after he hit her for the first time, and it turns out he's an abuser, and she still didn't like block him on like cell phone things, like still talking to him. Like that's not cool. That's a big red flag. And then just kind of everything with like Grayson, he's a creep. Jameson, he's a creep. Their mother, Sky, she's a freaking weirdo. She's a creep too. Like just in the bathtub, letting her son come in the bathroom and having a full-on conversation. And like Avery's the only uncomfortable one there. It just kind of shows how weird the family is, the weird dynamic is. Like she was having normal human reactions when everyone else in the room is just like, oh, this is normal. It's like, you're naked in front of your sons all the time. Like, that's weird. That is weird. One of the characters I did actually really enjoy and like was Avery's bodyguard, big black guy. I forget his name. It was like Oberon or Orbian, something like that. He was cool. His actions in word choice made a lot of sense. His only interest was taking care of Avery, making sure she was safe. But then sometimes Avery just completely disregarded what he had to say and ignored what he said and like, no, don't do that. Like, that's not safe. I don't recommend doing that. And then she goes and does something stupid anyway. Maybe not like Avery quite a bit, if I'm being honest. And another character I actually did like was Avery's lawyer. I forget her name, but her dad like was very close with Tobias Hawthorne from the law firm. So she was cool too. She made a lot of sense. She got outraged with Avery a lot, which I think was justified. And she's, again, just trying to do things for the best case scenario for Avery. Like making sure that the media sees her in a certain light so that they can control the story, things like that. Like that made sense, but then Avery's like, no, I don't want to do these things. That's annoying. And then she goes and like says stupid things in front of the media anyway and basically makes a crap storm for no reason. I thought that was stupid. So again, made me not like Avery as much, but I can appreciate the fact that she was still kind of having normal human reactions, you know? especially for a 17-year-old teenage girl. So that's fair. So again, characters 4.75. Just a bunch of weird freaks, in my opinion. Next is plot at 5.25. Again, not great, but the plot itself is very interesting, right? This random stranger gets invited to a reading of a will from a very wealthy man, and then she gets virtually everything, and then it's kind of the fallout of the family and things that happen after the fact. Very interesting thing. But then once she's actually living, and she has to live at the house for a year, or else her inheritance is null and void, and it all goes to charity. So the family doesn't get the money no matter what. It's either Avery gets it or charity. And people are trying to have her get her killed, so then it reverts whatever. So those things are interesting, but then the whole romance plot that happens in the last 150, 200 pages, I didn't care for. I didn't like. Basically, a forced love triangle, it felt, between Jameson and Grayson. I wasn't here for romance. I was actually interested in how she's going to navigate all these things. Something that was kind of fun and cool was that Tobias kind of left little clues behind, and then it was revealed to Avery that he would always have some sort of riddle or something for the four grandsons to crack or break through like every week. So that was kind of interesting and cool. And then just this is like his last riddle that he left behind. And then it seems like they finally break the riddle or crack the code, whatever. And then the youngest grandson, I forget his name, he's like, oh yeah, Grandpa, he told me before he died that my role was just to get you guys together. And then there's actually one, like, my riddle starts after this one ends. So it made sense if you wanted the story to go further, basically, or if you wanted the game to go further. But the way it was ended, I think was, like, there's a lot more to still explore, aside from there having to be another riddle, you know? So I think that was kind of silly when, like, the first riddle, in my opinion, wasn't even all that satisfying anyway, because I thought it was going to be all these, like, intelligent, like, clever things that Avery was going to have to navigate, because it's, in the beginning of the book, like I said, she's portrayed as a very smart individual, kind of like Peter Parker level intelligence, you know, where it's like, oh, just a teenager superhero, very smart, whatever. But then it's basically just a love triangle most of the book anyway, and you rarely see her like logically put things together. Like, oh, that makes sense. This is the only way it can be because X, Y, Z. Like, it rarely happens. And if it does, it's because someone else basically told her the answer, you know? So I feel like the actual game part or the riddle part could have been much more interesting, and that would have elevated this book a lot. But it didn't, in my opinion. It was mid. Next thing, I kind of lost track of what I'm even talking about. Next category is dialogue and prose. I rated this as a solid 5. There were a lot of jumping around things. There were entire scenes where I kind of lost track of what was happening. Like, kind of going back to that bathtub scene with Skye and Jameson and Avery. Or no, it was even later. That was the first time we saw her being naked weirdness. But then later when Skye is at the massage parlor part of the house, and Avery's kind of looking around trying to find clues, whatever. And then before, like when Avery was in that bathroom, she like turned her back because she didn't want to see naked Skye. She thought that was weird. But then in the massage parlor, Skye drops her robe and then goes on the table and then puts a towel over herself. It's never explained that she's like naked. Like, again, I'm not trying to like be weird and think about a character being naked. Like, that's not what I'm getting at. But when what I'm trying to get at is that Avery had that repulsed reaction in the bathtub scene, and now a few chapters later, she has no reaction to this scene at all, to this action at all. So that was really confusing to me. And maybe she did, and it just wasn't portrayed very well. Maybe I just missed that. I don't know, but I feel like that wasn't written very well. If she did have that reaction, I just completely missed it. So things like that drop dialogue and prose for me a lot. Things that's like if it's unclear what's happening, immediate decrease in score, right? Another thing that happens that I always complain about when it does happen is there were a couple scenes where there were blocks of text. There were more than two characters talking, and I had no idea who was talking after a couple lines. It was just like block of text or line or quote, 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 going back and forth, and I don't know who's saying what. That immediately for me is just like, that's not clear. I don't like reading those types of pages, those types of scenes. Immediate deduction, right? So the last thing that I actually did enjoy is the world building. That's the last category I always rate. That I rated as a 6.25. Again, kind of the world building in this, since it is like modern day fiction, is kind of exploring the Hawthorne house, basically the massive manor where most of the story takes place. Just in Avery and her sister, kind of exploring all the wings, seeing like they have literally a chef's kitchen with like industrial grade equipment. When her sister was making all those cupcakes, things like that, and like going to like the grandson's suite area or wing later in the book, and it's like it has a fire pole and a slide and like just a whole arcade lounge, like just all these cool things, exploring it, and then going down in like her garage, and she owns all these really cool cars, and then just little tidbits too where Avery's lawyer is like, hey, we have this plan, this is what we're doing for the next couple weekends. This weekend we're going to this NFL game, and she's like, why do I have to go to the NFL game? And then her lawyer's like, well, you own the team, so it helps if you show your face. Basically is what happened. It's never explained what team she actually owns. I would assume the Dallas Cowboys in this, since it's in Texas, but I could be wrong. Or the Texans. Those are the two Texas teams, right? So either of those two, but it's never explained because she never actually goes to the game. But like little tidbits like that actually got me really interested. It's like, because things like that would happen if she's one of the richest people in the world now, or richest people in the U.S. at least. So things like that were really cool, but it wasn't enough for a big payoff. Maybe that happens later, because there are 3 books. I think there might be 4 books now in the series. But yeah, right now I have no intention on continuing the series, because this is the only one I have anyway. So unless someone gifts me, or like I find these at a thrift store or something like that, maybe I'll pick them up. But I don't think I enjoyed it enough to go buy it new and try to continue the story. Wasn't all that excited. But yeah, that's how I felt about the Inheritance games. Overall, a 5.4. So what did you guys think? Did you guys enjoy this book? Have you guys been enjoying the series? Am I completely off base, or do you guys agree with me? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to hit you guys back with a message. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like down below. If you guys want to see more from me, Diggerdan, please hit that subscribe button as well as that bell notification icon. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.